صلوات. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. صلوات.
بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات. اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل. جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا، جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا، سر زندہ کی دیوار سے، سر زندہ کی دیوار سے ٹکراتی ہے بابا، جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا، کانوں سے ٹپکتا ہے لہو، شانوں پہ دیکھو، کانوں سے ٹپکتا ہے لہو، شانوں پہ دیکھو، ظالم کی اذیت مجھے تڑپاتی ہے بابا، جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا، دربار یزیدی میں بلا کیسے میں جاؤں، دربار یزیدی میں بلا کیسے میں جاؤں، یہ چاک گریباں حیا آتی ہے بابا، جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا، جلتے ہوئے خیموں کے نظارے ہیں نظر میں، ہے جلتے ہوئے خیموں کے نظارے ہیں نظر میں، یہ بات خیالوں سے کہاں جاتی ہے بابا، جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا، مر جاؤں گی پیاسی نہ کبھی مانگوں گی پانی، مر جاؤں گی پیاسی نہ کبھی مانگوں گی پانی، اصغر کی مجھے پیاس جو یاد آتی ہے بابا، جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا، یاد آتے ہیں جب شمر ستم گار کے مظالم، یاد آتے ہیں جب شمر ستم گار کے مظالم، یہ ننھی سی دختر تیری گھبراتی ہے بابا، جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا، جب تک تیرے سینے سے نہ لگ جائے سکینہ، جب تک تیرے سینے سے نہ لگ جائے سکینہ، زندان میں اسے نیند کہاں آتی ہے بابا، جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا۔ الفاتحہ۔
پر محمد و آل محمد صلوات اللہ صلی علی Mu'minin. Tonight's Ruhani Majlis announcements. Today's Majlis has been sponsored by Al-Haj Mohib Bhai Mawani for the Isale Sawab of Marum Ramzan Ali Bhai Mawani, Marum Sher Ali Bhai Mawani, Maruma Kubra Bhai Mawani, Marumins of Mawani family, Marumins of Walji family, Marumins of Kimji family, and Kul Marumins. You humbly requested to recite Surah Fatiha for Kul Marumins. Al-Fatiha. Bismillah.
الصلوات. نعرے تکبیر، نعرے رسالت، نعرے حیدری. مولا کو ورث حسن مجتبی ملا، مولا کو ورث حسن مجتبی ملا. دست ستم سے ان کو بھی زیر دگا ملا، دست ستم سے ان کو بھی زیر دگا ملا. ہر روز ایک روز سے صدمہ سوا ملا، ہر روز ایک روز سے صدمہ سوا ملا. کیا خاک میں نشان رسول خدا ملا، کیا خاک میں نشان رسول خدا ملا. زیر اجل سے سب حسن کا بدن ہوا، زیر اجل سے سب حسن کا بدن ہوا. سب سیر خدا کا چمن ہوا. صلوات.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد واللعنة الدائمة الباقية على أعدائهم أجمعين أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه المجيد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أفحسبتم أنما خلقناكم عبثا وأنكم إلينا لا ترجعون آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد My dear elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, on behalf of you all, we send our condolences to the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Zaman, Ajjalallahu farajahu al-Sharif, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa on the occasion of the Martyrdom anniversary of his father, the 11th Imam, Imam Hassan al-Askari, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin. I will request you all that we remember all our marhumin and gift them with one surah Fatiha. Bismillah. Recite salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin. There is a tradition amongst the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam that the period of mourning, the period of Aza that began on the eve of 1st of Muharram comes to an end on 8th of Rabi'ul Awwal. That does not mean that during the other months there are no occasions that we can assemble and commemorate. One of the occasions which is highly encouraged, especially in these days, is what is called Ayyam Fatimiyya, where the great lady Bibi Fatima Zahra salawatullah wa salamu alayha Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa is remembered. From tomorrow onwards we will not find these black clothes, the sign that the period of mourning and weeping and Azah has ended. And then the rest of the days, whenever we have occasion of the celebration or commemoration, we gather here to celebrate or to commemorate that occasion. Tonight, I want to discuss 2 points from the life of our 11th Imam. Those people who are aware, who regularly attend during such occasions, I normally take the lives or the life of that particular Imam, bring some incident from his life, and then we try to reflect and take lessons from there. And that is the purpose of such gatherings, that when we remember A'imma Tahirin alayhimus salam, one of the purpose of remembering them is that because they are our role models, we try to take the example from their life and try to follow. The 2 points that I want to make today are both related to our aqidah, to our conviction, to our beliefs. And both these are very, very important, because when it comes to aqidah, no one can say that we will take matters of aqidah very lightly. No, we take the matters of aqidah very seriously. We try to understand and keep firm on our faith. So to begin with, the first one is, this is an incident which I am sure the elders have heard it many times, but a reminder is always good. And this incident is during the childhood of our 11th Imam. It has been mentioned that once our 11th Imam was amongst, when he was a child, he was amongst the children, and the other children were playing, but our 11th Imam was not playing, and according to one narration, he was crying. One man passed by there, and he thought that this boy is crying because he may not have any toy to play with, while the others have the toys to play with. So maybe that's the reason why he is crying. The man went to him and he told him, "Don't cry. I will buy a toy for you so that you can play with it." And this child, of course, is our 11th Imam, replies to him, "We have not been created to play." Now, each sentence in this conversation requires reflection. Not only reflection, it requires introspection. Looking up to at our own life, to the stage that we have reached. Imam at that age tells him, "We have not been created to play." And this man is amazed. A small child replying. It looks like a philosophical reply, that we have not been created to play. So the man says, "Then for what have we been created? For what have we been created?" And our 11th Imam replies, "We have been created for knowledge and worship." We have been created for knowledge and worship. The man says, "Who told you that? Where did you get this information from?" And now the 11th Imam replies and tells him, "What I am telling you is something which has directly come from Allah Azza wa Jal, who has created us." Imam quoted verse number 115 of Surah Al-Mu'minun, 23rd surah in the Holy Quran, verse number 115. Allah Azza wa Jal is asking this question. أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ أَنَّمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ عَبَثًا. Do you take, when you take everything into account, hisab, when you take everything in this universe and look at your life, do you think that we have created you in vain? Abath means no purpose. Abath means no destination. Do you think we have created you in vain? And then the ayah continues, which says, وَأَنَّكُمْ إِلَيْنَا لَا تُرْجَعُونَ. Tawheed, Qiyamat. Have we created you in vain? Do you think that you are not going to be returned to us? Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying that. Now the man was of course surprised, and now the man says, Imam is crying. So man says, so why do you fear? What has happened to you while you are still a guiltless little child? You are masoom. What has happened to you? Recite salawat, please. Mohamed. What has happened to you? You are still a guiltless little child. And Imam said, look, you be away from me. Right. I'm giving you my interpretation now. Be away from me, meaning you are a bad influence upon me. Okay? Be away from me. Here I am crying. Here I know the reason why I am crying. Says, I have seen my mother set fire to big pieces of wood. But fire is not lit except with small pieces. And I fear I shall be from the small pieces of that wood. Point. This small incident in the life of Imam tells us that the fear of Allah, fear of God, fear of the punishment of God that Imam had in his life. And when we look at the next part of the verse, which of course Imam did not read, but when we look, this is for our own information and understanding, that Allah Azza wa Jal is also reminding us that you have not come over here in this world without any purpose. There is a purpose. But not only that, after this life, there is another life, and you are all going to be brought to me. Allah Azza wa Jal is telling us that. So on one hand, we understand what is the purpose of our life. On the other hand, we try to understand and prepare ourselves for that life in the hereafter. Now, I want to quote two to three verses from the Holy Quran, which may give us an indication to understand as to why we have been created. Here Allah says, أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ أَنَّمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ عَبَثًا, which means very clearly for us that Allah has not created us in vain. So Allah, for what have you created us? Again, whatever verses I am quoting are those verses you are familiar with, but remember Allah Azza wa Jal himself says in the Holy Quran, فَذَكِّرْ فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَ تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Remind for reminder is beneficial to mu'mineen. So it's all reminder. Surah Dhariyat, verse number 56, Allah Azza wa Jal says very clearly, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. So the first purpose we can understand is the reason we have been created, we are human beings, we have been created is for worship of Allah Azza wa Jal. I will explain this in further when I quote one hadith of our third Imam. Okay? So we all understand our purpose of creation is to worship Him, Allah Azza wa Jal. Number 2, Suratul Mulk, verse number 2, where Allah Azza wa Jal says, خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. So the other purpose of our creation is that this world, this life is a test for us. And in this life, we have been encouraged to do good deeds. So Allah has created death, Allah has created life. This life which we are living is a life which is test for us, and the test is how big we can create or we can amass and make into a huge mountain of good deeds. From the beginning, slowly, step by step, and it goes on increasing. And Allah wants to see that who out of all of us is best in performing of the good deeds. This is number 2. Surah Hud, verse number 119, where Allah Azza wa Jal says, "Illa man rahima rabbuk," except those on whom your Lord has mercy. Except on those whom your Lord has mercy. وَلِذَلِكَ خَلَقَهُمْ. It is for receiving the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal that He has created us. So there is worship, there is the performance of the good deeds in this life, but at the same time, there is one more, and that is to receive mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. And mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal, of course, we invite it through His obedience. He is the most merciful. No, He is Arhamur Rahimin. If we understand Allah Azza wa Jal and are ready to obey His commands, then He is Arhamur Rahimin. He will go on showering His mercy. Imam Husain salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Again, this hadith you have heard before. Inna Allah ma khalaqa al-ibad illa liya'rifuhu. Allah Azza wa Jal, Imam says, has not created the servant except, we are all servants of Allah, we are ibad of Allah. He has not created us except that we recognize Him, we understand Him. That's the first step. After that, Imam says, فَإِذَا عَرَفُوهُ أَعْبُدُوهُ. When they understand, then they worship Him. Then they worship Him. فَإِذَا عَبَدُوهُ اسْتَغْنَوْا بِعِبَادَتِهِ عَنْ عِبَادَةِ مَنْ سِوَاهُ. Once they worship Him, that is, worship Allah Azza wa Jal, then they will not worship anyone besides Him. They will only worship Allah Azza wa Jal. All this requires introspection. All this requires for us to think and ask sincerely whether we are worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal only, or in our life, God forbids, there are others whom we worship. So my dear elders, brothers and sisters, this was the first point that I wanted to discuss today, and that is, we understand, let us try to create truly understanding fear of Allah Azza wa Jal in our heart. Fear here meaning does not we fear Allah. No, He is Arhamur Rahim, the most merciful. And when someone is merciful, you go quickly to Him. But fear the punishment, the wrath of Allah Azza wa Jal. Recite salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Second point, recite salawat, please. Is related to the duties of our 11th Imam, Imam Hassan al-Askari, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. First point to understand that if you look at the period of imamat, so if you take period of imamat of our first Imam, then it is immediately after the passing away of the Holy Prophet. He was Imam. It goes on up to the year 40 after Hijrah. Okay. So it's about 29 years of imamat. And when you look at the other Imams, when you look at their period of imamat, the one who had the least time to be the Imam, that is, that responsibility was our 11th Imam. 254 after Hijrah, up to 260 after Hijrah, 6 years only. But these 6 years were those 6 years after which the continuity of imamat was going to be there. That's order of Allah Azza wa Jal. But the society was coming towards such an event in their life that they needed to be prepared for it. For up to now, there was possibility from the time of the first Imam, going up to even the 11th Imam, that there were people who were able to meet face to face with Imam. Of course, as I will explain, in the period of 10th and 11th Imam, that became not a norm, but it was special occasions where people used to go, and special people or very close companions of Imam who used to go and meet the Imam. Not everyone was welcome or allowed to come and meet the Imam. So this preparation and how to prepare the people, this was a very important task in the hands of our 11th Imam. And that, of course, is preparation of the ghaibah of the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Zaman, Ajjalallahu Farajahu al-Sharif. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So my dear elders, brothers and sisters, you know that when an event, important event is going to take place, there is preparation for it. We take an example in our community. That let us say that we are going to have an event, for example, to celebrate 50 years of our community. Just an example. Okay? To make a preparation for that, people will be informed that this particular date is when our community is going to get together in order to celebrate this 50 years anniversary. But that could be a period of maybe 1 month, maybe 1.5 months, maximum take 2 months. Right? And we are told, pencil the date. That is, understand, this day keep free because it is a whole community event. The coming of Imam Mahdi Ajjalallahu Farajahu Sharif, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, was such an important event, and the ghaibah of Imam was such an important event that its preparation began when the Holy Prophet began the work of tabligh of Islam. Not before 2 months, not before 6 years, more than 250 years. The Muslim Ummah was being prepared of the coming of one who is going to establish equity and justice on this earth. Allah had promised his messenger, the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Of a time that when the religion, the message, the final message that the Holy Prophet brought is going to prevail over all other religions. And that time, of course, is when the dhuhur and the reappearance of the Imam of our time will happen. Now, I want to give an example, especially for the children, for the young people, to understand as to how strong and how important this preparation was. If you do research on a hadith of the 12th Imam, or regarding the ghaibah of the 12th Imam, regarding the rule of the 12th Imam, regarding what Imam is going to do, you will get a hadith from the Holy Prophet down up to 11th Imam. In other words, including Bibi Fatima Zahra salawatullah wa salamuhu alayha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa. Everyone has mentioned about the coming of the 12th Imam. Okay? So here I want to present 3 or 4 ahadith before I come down to explain what were the steps that were taken by 10th and 11th Imam regarding this important matter. So first hadith is from our 5th Imam, where a person by the name of Ibrahim bin Umar Kanasi, he says that the 5th Imam said, surely there are 2 occultations for the master of the affair, that is Sahibu Hadhal Amr, that is of course our 12th Imam, and the upriser, meaning an al-Qa'im, will rise while he owes no one an allegiance. 2 important points. Point number 1 is, at that time, the Muslims are being told that Al-Qa'im will appear. And that Al-Qa'im will have 2 occultations. And point number 2 is that he is the one who will have given no oath of allegiance to anyone at all. And he will come in this world. There is a hadith from our 6th Imam. And the person who quotes this hadith is Safwan bin Mihran, who says, whoever professes to all Imams but disclaims Imam Mahdi is like the one who professes to all the Prophet but disclaims Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So, you know that these days there is some discussion going on, and there are people who come up with all these ideas. Since the time of the Holy Prophet, the coming of Imam Mahdi alayhi salam has been explained. And this hadith is from 6th Imam, and I also read that this hadith is from 11th Imam also, where he says that whosoever disclaims, he may accept all the Imams, but does not believe in Imam Mahdi, is like a person who believes in all the prophets, but does not believe in Prophet Muhammad. And a person who does not believe in Prophet Muhammad cannot be counted as a Muslim. Ubayd bin Zurara again quotes from 6th Imam, where 6th Imam says, people will lose their Imam, then he will attend to Hajj, that is pilgrimage to Mecca, and sees them. He will be able to see them. He will recognize them, the Imam of the time. But they do not see him. And finally, recite salawat, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Abu Basir, quoting from 6th Imam, this is important. If your master, Mullah, happens to be absent, never deny him. From that day, Imam started giving that instruction. Sixth Imam giving instruction. And of course that would come down and reach to a time where our Mullah is absent from us, meaning we are unable to see him. He is able to see us. Sixth Imam teaches us, do not deny him, just because you are unable to see him. Now let us look at 3 important steps that 10th and 11th Imam took in order to prepare the people for the coming of our 12th Imam. Coming meaning that birth of the 12th Imam as well as the occultation of the Imam. Because in occultation, they were not going to see the Imam at all. Okay? So the first point that both 10th and 11th Imam did was that they did exactly what their ancestors had done. So from the Holy Prophet up to the 9th Imam, they had prepared the people, they had explained to them, they mentioned the traditions so that people would get information, would get that knowledge, and would be aware of it. So the first step they took was that they made people aware of the Imam, that is the 12th Imam, as well as the occultation of the 12th Imam. I will quote one hadith of the 10th Imam over here where he says, surely the Imam after me is my son Hassan, and after him the Imam is his son, the upriser Al-Qa'im, who will fill the earth with equity and justice after it is filled with oppression and cruelty. So this was one way. Okay? But 11th Imam took even one step forward. And he had to do it. 10th Imam did not do it, but 11th Imam had to do it because it was during that situation. He of course mentioned the ahadith, but the other step he took was that he called some of his very close companions and invited them to witness the birth, that is after the birth of our 12th Imam, to see that Allah Azza wa Jal has blessed him with a son, and that son is going to be the Imam after him, and he is going to be the Hujjah on this earth. So this was the first step. The second step that both the Imams took was that slowly, very gradually, they veiled themselves from their Shias. Veiled meaning that they did not meet their Shias as often as the other Shias were meeting the other Imams. Slowly, gradually keeping them away so that people would be prepared. When the time of occultation comes, that situation would be like normal for them. That there was time when we could not meet the 10th Imam, there's a time we could not meet the 11th Imam, there's a time now that Imam is in ghaibah. And historian Mas'udi in his book Ithbatul Wasiyya mentions this. It's important that we understand. Imam Hadi salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, would stay away from most of his friends except few favored, and when the 11th Imam became the Imam, he would speak both with the common as well as favored friends, but from behind the curtain. Not directly face to face. Behind the curtain. Except there was a time when the Shias would be able to see the 11th Imam, because there was a period of one Banu Abbasi Khalifa where Imam was ordered twice in a week to go to see the Abbasi Khalifa. According to historians, it was Monday and Thursday, and Imam would then ride, and people would know, and people would be standing there just to see the Imam. To see the Imam. So that was the time when they would be able to see the Imam. Okay. The rest of the communication of the Imam was, where I explained now, the third point, and that was reinforcing the network of the agents. The agents or wukala, singular wakil, plural wukala, this system began from the time of our sixth Imam. During the time of our sixth Imam, of course, it was not as organized because it had just begun. But from the time of seventh Imam to eighth Imam, and then later on, it slowly and gradually became an organized system. And these wukala had many responsibilities. Some of the responsibilities, as the historians have mentioned, is, for example, collecting of all religious duties. And these wukala were given permission of collecting the religious duties. At the same time, they were also given permission, special instructions, that they would spend it amongst the people. Number two is they were to manage the awqaf or endowments. Some of the people who had given this, whether it was a piece of land or whether it was a farm or something for the purpose of doing some good deeds, they were given that responsibility to look after. Number three was to guide the Shias, at the same time debating with the opposition. Time does not permit me just now, otherwise I would have quoted an incident where a person would come and he would debate with the Shias, and the wakil, he would be responsible. In other words, Imam did not choose any person at all just like this. These wukala had special qualities. Amongst those qualities, one of them was, of course, to be those who were pious people, knowledgeable people, trustworthy people. Imam would choose such people, and they would be appointed. And these people, they had that responsibility that when time came, they would be able to debate with the opposition. Okay? Then there was also a political role of these network or the agents who were there in that network. They also had political role. Remember that Banu Abbasi Khalifa had always this thing in their mind, that Imam, for example, was, whoever the Imam was, he was preparing and silently meeting his Shias, collecting wealth in order to prepare an army in order to fight against them. When you study the life of 10th Imam, you will come to find that Mutawakkil time and again used to send his soldiers to the house of 10th Imam to see if Imam had amassed any arms or had gathered something. So these people, the agents, were the ones who would be prepared to face that political situation. Right? For example, having the land, having the farm, and such things. Khalifa would think that this is belonging to Imam, and with this income he is preparing himself to fight. But when it was in the hands of the agents, then they would be understood to be those who are either managing or maybe it is belonging to them. Okay. Then there was the communication role of the agents. And this was the important point, this is which I want to explain, is that when Imam stopped meeting with the Shias, whatever the problems the Shias had, whatever they wanted to ask, it would go through the agents. the communication between the agents and Imam would remain, but not the direct communication from a Shia. Okay? There is an interesting incident which is mentioned in history over here, that there was a person by the name of Ahmad bin Ishaq Qummi, from Qum, Ahmad bin Ishaq. He went to 11th Imam and he told Imam, write something for me. Write something for me. The purpose and the reason that he took that writing from Imam was that should there appear something where someone would say that this is one which has been ordered by 11th Imam, he would take that paper and compare whether it is writing of the 11th Imam or not. How careful these people were. But the agents had that communication role, and it is something here that during the period of 10th and 11th Imam, both of them ensured that this network becomes strong. It should not die a natural death after the going or passing away of the Imam. They made it very strong. The other thing one has to understand also is that there were Shias not only in Samarra, there were Shias in Iran, there were Shias in Iraq, there were Shias in Hijaz, there were Shias in Egypt, there were Shias in Morocco. And they were spread. And for all of them, the communication or the means and the source of communication were the agents that were appointed by the Imam. As such, Imam wanted to ensure that this network of agents becomes stronger, and look at its effect. 11th Imam passes away. The Imam of our time passes into ghaibah. That period of ghaibat sughra, which is of about 69 or 70 years, that network was still strong. There were 4 special deputies of our 12th Imam, one after the other. And it is after the death of the last one, when Imam said that after your death, there is going to be no other representative. Slowly, this network of agents stopped, because now who is communicating with whom? And, of course, the role of the scholars in Ghaibat Kubra is one very important role. Our Maraji' have given their time. Our Maraji' have given great sacrifices in order to keep the doctrine of Mahdism, that is, keeping the belief of the people alive in the hearts, the belief of Imam Mahdi being alive in the hearts of the mu'mineen. For that our Maraji have given great, great sacrifices. My dear elders, brothers and sisters, I would advise myself, of course, before I tell you, with due respect to Sheikh Sahib, please, that it is really, really important for us to understand deeply our aqidah. Sometimes you will notice that there are people who make blunders, not mistakes, blunders. And considering that this is part of Islam, we continue. No. We try to understand deeply, and we keep the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam together. We will attend majalises, my dear elders, brothers and sisters. because this is something which is not our creation. It is creation since the time when Bibi Zainab alayhi salam first time said that a house where I can go and mourn and weep my brother Hussein. And this has continued. Efforts have been made to stop this, to destroy this, but it will not stop. It will continue. But together with this, there is importance, necessity that we at the same time try to understand and try to learn more about our faith. For the times that are coming ahead are not going to be easy times, and especially when it comes to faith. People of weak faith, astaghfirullah al-a'yadhu billah, may run away. But people who are strong in their faith will be ready to face those situations and say, we are ready. We are not going to move away from what is our faith. Simple and humble advice to myself and to you all, my dear elders, brothers. We have come to that stage now that as we remember the time when Imam Hassan al-Askari salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh was about to pass away from this world. Azadar. Banu Abbasi Khalifa were always afraid that someone from the progeny of the Holy Prophet, and especially the Imams, will take revenge and will fight against us and will overthrow us. When you look at the last days of Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam, I will mention here, of course, there are two different narrations. One is that Imam was given poison. The other one was that Imam was seriously ill or sick. But those last days of Imam were spent in a situation where Imam was ill and he was very sick. Mu'tamid at that time had appointed some people, even some doctors, to go and check on Imam, to ensure that Imam has passed away from this world. Not for keeping Imam well, no, the sending of the doctors, but he was also sending spies to see what was happening to Imam. Azadar, those difficult days for Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam, spent remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jal, recitation of the Holy Quran. Imam is moved from one place to another place. And there comes a time, eve of 8th of Rabiul Awwal in the year 260, that Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam passes away from this world. Azadar, the Imam of our time, was only 5 years old. Imam was given ghusl, and then his body was prepared. I will mention one thing before we come to janazah of Imam. I will say to Imam Hassan al-Askari, Mawla, you had an elder brother by the name of Mohamed, who, when he passed away at the young age of 28, you cried so much, for Muhammad was very close to you, for Muhammad was the one who was always together with you. But when he passed away from this world, Mawla, you cried, you wept, and you mourned for the loss of your brother Muhammad Azadar. There was also another brother who was very close to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. What happened to and how did Imam Hussein alayhi salam face that situation? When Abul Fadl Abbas called out and said, Ya Mawla, accept my last salams. When Imam Hussein alayhi salam reached there, what did he find? He finds Abbas, his two arms severed. Abbas has an arrow in his eye, and Abbas is lying on the ground. Oh Mawla, at that time, how did you face that situation? At least Imam expressed that and said that the loss of Brother Abbas is a very big loss. When he said, Al-an inkasara dhahri, now my back has been broken. This is how Imam Hussein alayhi salam faced that situation. But when the janazah of Imam Hassan al-Askari was prepared, and his brother Jafar wanted to come and lead the prayer so that people would think that he is the Imam after his brother, suddenly our 12th Imam comes and says, Oh uncle, move away. This is my right. I am the one who is going to lead namaz janazah. I will say, Oh Imam Hassan al-Askari, your son, he came and he led namaz janazah. Ask Imam Ali Zainul Abidin on 11th of Muharram, when he saw the body of his father trampled, and he saw he could not give him ghusl, he could not give him kafan, he could not bury him. But at that time, when Imam looked at his father, the color, the face of Imam Ali Zainul Abidin turned pale. At that time, Zainab alayha salam looked at at her nephew and said, Do not worry, a time will come when your father will be buried. There will be a grave, there will be a shrine over here, there will be the Shias who will come and do ma'atam of your father. They will weep, they will mourn for your father. Humayd ibn Muslim says, I can forget all the scenes of Karbala. Zainab alayhi salam was explaining to Imam Ali Zainul Abidin, and suddenly she turned towards Medina and said, Ya Jadda, Salla alayka Malik as-samai wal ard. Oh grandfather, the angels of the heaven and the earth prayed over you. Or other narration and translation is that the angels of the heavens and the earth sent salutations upon you. But look at your Hussein. He is lying on the plains of Karbala, and dust is gathering on his body. Azadaro, jab luta hua kafila Sham se Karbala और करबला से मदीना वापस पहुंचा है, तो उस वक्त सब गए पैगंबर इस्लाम की कब्र के नजदीक, और उस वक्त ज़ैनब अलैहिस्सलाम ने, जनाब ज़ैनब अलैहिस्सलाम ने कहा, ऐ जद्दा ऐ नाना, मैं आपको पुरसा दे रही हूँ आपके नवासे हुसैन की, और नाना मैं आपके लिए एक तोहफा लेके ये हुसैन का खूब बड़ा कुर्ता, اس کے بعد جناب زینب علیہ السلام نے کہا اے نانا یہ زینب مشکلوں اور تکلیفوں کے بعد واپس آئی ہے. نانا کربلا سے کوفہ اور کوفہ سے شام اور اس کے بعد ہم مدینہ واپس آئے ہیں. نانا یہاں نامحرموں کا مجمع. نانا زینب تعزیت سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. ماتم حسين يا حسين يا حسين.
ہائے حسن عسکری، 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 مارے گئے زہر سے ہائے حسن عسکری، ہائے حسن عسکری، ہائے حسن عسکری، ہائے حسن حسن. کہتے تھے شاہ زماں بابا حسن عسکری، کہتے تھے شاہ زماں بابا حسن عسکری، ہائے یہ کیا ہو گیا بابا حسن عسکری. کہتے تھے شاہ زماں بابا حسن عسکری، کہتے تھے شاہ زماں حسن عسکری، ہائے یہ کیا ہو گیا. سوئے جنا چل بسے کون ہمارا ہے اب، سوئے جنا چل بسے کون ہمارا ہے اب، دل ہوا ٹکڑے میرا بابا حسن عسکری. کہتے تھے شاہ زماں بابا حسن عسکری، کہتے تھے شاہ زماں بابا حسن عسکری، ہائے یہ کیا ہو گیا بابا. کون تھا ظالم یہ جس نے دیا زہر، یہ کون تھا ظالم یہ جس نے دیا زہر، یہ کر دیا بن باپ کا بابا حسن عسکری. تھے شاہ زماں بابا حسن عسکری، کہتے تھے شاہ زماں بابا حسن عسکری. کربلا والے ہمیں در سے رضا دیتے ہیں، 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 تیر پر تیر بکھا کر یوں دعا دیتے ہیں، کربلا والے ہمیں در سے رضا دیتے ہیں، کربلا در سے رضا دیتے ہیں. ہائے نانا تیری امت میں کہیں رحم نہیں، ہائے نانا تیری امت میں کہیں رحم نہیں، ہائے بیمار کو زنجیر پہنا دیتے ہیں، کربلا والے ہمیں در سے رضا دیتے ہیں، کربلا در سے رضا دیتے ہیں۔ اب نہ مانگیں گے کبھی پانی چچا لوٹ آؤ، اب نہ مانگیں گے کبھی پانی چچا لوٹ آؤ، خشک ہونٹوں پہ یہ معصوم صدا دیتے ہیں، کربلا والے ہمیں در سے رضا دیتے ہیں، کربلا والے ہمیں در سے رضا دیتے ہیں۔ ہائے نانا تیری امت میں کہیں رحم نہیں، ہائے نانا تیری امت میں کہیں رحم نہیں، بی بی زینب کو در خیمہ رلا دیتے ہیں، کربلا والے ہمیں در سے رضا دیتے ہیں، کربلا والے ہمیں در سے رضا دیتے ہیں۔ مجھ کو پہچانو ذرا غافلو سوچو سمجھو، مجھ کو پہچانو ذرا غافلو سوچو سمجھو، مجھ کو مہمان بلا کر یوں دغا دیتے ہیں، کربلا والے ہمیں در سے رضا دیتے ہیں، کربلا والے ہمیں در سے رضا دیتے ہیں، تیر پر تیر بھی کھا کر یوں دعا دیتے ہیں، کربلا والے ہمیں در سے رضا دیتے ہیں۔ الفاتحہ۔ السلام علیک یا رسول اللہ، السلام علیک یا امیر المؤمنین، السلام علیک یا فاطمۃ الزہراء سیدتی نساء العالمین، السلام علیک یا حسن المجتبی، السلام علیک یا ابا عبد اللہ، السلام علی الحسین وعلی علی ابن الحسین وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين وتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولى وابن مولى، السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء، السلطان أبا الحسن علي بن موسى الرضا، كن شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان، أحسن الله لك العطاء. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان، عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك، وجعلنا من أنصارك وأوانك، ورحمة الله وبركاته.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم وليك الحسن الحسن الوصل لي ولا باهيك في هذا ساعتي وفي كل ساعة وفي كل ساعة وعاد وحاسعة وإينا حتى تسمعوا وسرته له ومنته فيها رياض صلوات.